I've been spending a lot of time in Path of Exile 2, especially on the Steam Deck, because actually I do feel this is playing very well, and I have now settled with the Sorceress to go further in Act 2. A lot of people are complaining about performance issues in Act 2, and on the Ajura Caravan, they are not wrong. This has a major performance issue, not just on the Steam Deck, but any system that this plays on. The performance takes a massive hit on this caravan, and it has got an impressive amount of stuff going on here, so it's kind of to be expected. Although it does need some optimization, it's not completely unplayable. Settings wise, still keeping everything pretty much as the previous video, but have enabled dynamic culling to see if it helps things a little bit here, and we still can't turn triple buffering off. But otherwise, texture quality at medium and everything else pretty much on low with 4x anisotropic filtering. FSR quality is still performing very nicely, but I do still prefer the look and feel of XeSS balanced. As you can see here, when we're in the actual combat, it varies quite a lot. Now, this isn't just to do with Act 2, this is more to do with the amount of monsters and the amount of skill effects going on the screen at one time. Now, this does dip into the 30s with a ton of monsters and effects going off, but goes back up to the 40s and 50s quite regularly when we don't have those monsters around. So you are going to be able to play this, and when you have hordes of monsters around you, the last thing you're really looking at is that frames per second and more on staying alive and looking at how good everything looks with all these effects going off. Now, with a couple of people in your party, as you can have a friend or two, you are going to be down in that 30 frames per second a little bit more often. But otherwise, especially if you're playing solo, you're not going to have too much of trouble unless you're on that Ajura Caravan, in which case the 20 isn't very nice, but it is still stomachable. Of course, if you do want that 60 frames per second solid with full graphic settings, then this is also available on GeForce Now, and you can run this at maximum settings and don't need to worry about dynamic culling, including having DLSS DLAA enabled. So you can see this in all its glory. So here we are on the Ajura Caravan. You can see that we're not even dipping under 60 frames per second here, and it's looking absolutely gorgeous. And when we're in game with all of the effects going off, once again, keeping that 60 frames per second solid with crisp graphics as well. As long as you have stable internet, then running this on the Steam Deck via the streaming on GeForce Now is still a fantastic experience. But if not, you are still able to play this locally, so at least you have options. We'll keep an eye on the updates. This is still early access and still early days for Path of Exile 2, so I can imagine there's going to be a lot more optimizations to come. Let us know in the comments below what class you're playing and whether you are playing on deck or GeForce Now. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.